Okay, welcome back, everyone. We took a few weeks off, so it's good to be back. The topic for tonight is Malava Malka. Um, the reason I wanted to talk about Malava Malka is because um, Malava Malka is this idea that we eat a meal after Shabbos, mostly Shabbos. Um, and in the summertime, it gets pretty late. Shabbos ends, and a lot of times, I'm just speaking for myself, not really so hungry. Had a late Shabbos, don't really want to eat something. So I thought it would be appropriate to at least learn the halachos about a malava malka, where does this idea come from, what is actually required, and then that way I can know what to do on Motzei Shabbos Saturday night if maybe not super hungry. So that was my thinking. That's especially relevant during these summer months to know what you're doing. During the winter, it's really easy. Shabbos ends at around 6. Um, I don't know. I still need to keep eating. I need to eat more after Shabbos. So in the summer, it's a little bit less clear. Um, so what we'll do tonight is we'll read the Shulchan Aruch and we'll read on the Mishnah Brura and some of the commentaries around the Mishnah Brura, some other stuff. Um, and we'll go from there. So the in Shulchan Aruch, it's really, really short. The statement about Shulchan Aruch is just one sif, just one halacha, and Mishnah Berurah only has three. So we can basically see everything inside in just one night. So Shulchan Aruch says, these are his words: "Olam yisader adam shulchanu b'motzei Shabbos kedei relavus et Shabbos." Says a person should yisader, which literally means like arrange or set Shulchano, his table, the Moti Shabbos, on Moti Shabbos, Saturday night, Kidei lelavus at the Shabbos, in order to escort the Shabbos. And then he finishes by saying, Afilu enu tzarich ela lechazai. Even if he only wants, even if only he needs, is what he says, one kazayis, which is a very, very small amount. So what exactly does he mean when he says that? So one second. So what I want to do is look and see where that comes from. So this really starts with the Gemara. There's the Gemara in Shabbos on the uh, Kuf Yud Kuf Yud Tes Amud Beis 119b. The Gemara says as follows: Amar Rabbi Elazar. Rabbi Elazar says, "The Olam Yisader Adam Shulchanu Be'erev Shabbos." Rabbi Elazar is talking about on Friday. Even though you only want a kizai. So Rabbi Elazar says basically the same statement as found in Shulchan Aruch, but he's talking about Erev Shabbos, talking about Friday. Yamar Rabbi Chanina, he adds, the Olam Yisader Adam Shulchano B'motzai Shabbos. Person should arrange his table, set his table at the conclusion of Shabbos. Even if even if he only needs even if he only even if he only needs a little bit of kizayis, an olive size of food. So Rashi there, he comments, right? And that's pretty much verbatim, exactly what the Shulchan Aruch says. So Rashi there comments. He says, "Why do you do this?" He says, "Nami kavod Shabbos lavus b'siyaso," because it's also honor for Shabbos to escort it on its way out. Derech kavod, is like a sign of like honor. Ki adam hamavet hamelech b'teiso min year, like a person who escorts the king as the king exits the city. So Rashi explains that the reason why you should set your table, you should arrange your table on Motzei Shabbos is because it's Kavod Shabbos. We know we have this concept about honoring Shabbos, Kavod Shabbos. So he says Kavod Shabbos too, to basically escort the Shabbos queen on her way out, like a person who would escort a king on his way out of the city. And then the Gemara says, Chamin b'motzei Shabbos melugma, says to eat warm, hot water on Motzei Shabbos is melugma, which means it's or to eat and to also to drink hot water and to also bathe in hot water is melugma, which means like refuah, it heals you. And pas cham b'motzei Shabbos melugma, and also warm bread on Motzei Shabbos is also It's also overfood. It also will heal. And then the Gemara says, Rabbi Avo have avdin lay be'apoke shabta iglatelsa have acha mine kuyasa. What does that mean? The Rabbi Avo at Motei Shabbos, what he would do is he would take a third born calf, which was like a very good meat, and he would eat one kidney from it. That's what he would do after every Motzi Shabbos. He'd prepare a whole calf and he would only eat the kidney. He got the Avimi Brei. So when his son Avimi grew up, Amar Lei said to him, Lama chalaf sudei kulei ai. Why do you waste so much? You're making this whole big cow and you're only eating the kidney from it on Motzi Shabbos. Right? So he says, Nishpo kuyasa mimale Shabbos. He says, let us just leave the kidney over from Erev Shabbos, and then you don't need to slaughter a whole new calf in order for Motei Shabbos. So Shafua, so they said that's what they did. The Asa Aryeh Achlay, and a lion came, and he basically ate the calf, and they weren't able to do that. So that's the Gemara. But we see so there's a little bit of stories that come at the end of the Gemara, but the only clear halacha that we have from the Gemara is that you should do this. We're gonna have to define what it means, but you should be Yisader Adam Shulchan Motei Shabbos. The literal translation will be to arrange your table on Motei Shabbos. And the reason to do it, which is what Rashi says, and also what the Shulchan Aruch says as well, is in order to escort the Shabbos, right? Rashi explains like a king. You're escorting the king out of the city, so we're escorting Shabbos out by setting the table. So let's see how the Mishnah Berurah explains here. So Mishnah Berurah says, Simin Shin Tif Aleph Tif Katan Aleph. He says 301. So he says, Hainu Yisari Adam Shulchano. What does that mean? Lifrost Mapa Shulchano Derech. It means you should basically put the tablecloth on the table as a sign of kavod, as a sign of honor. And also the other things that you put on the table if you were to set the table. But you don't need to cook food or prepare more than you actually need to eat. The point is they just set the table with everything that's appropriate for setting a table, tablecloth, and seemingly silverware. And they quote from the in the Dear Gemara, they quote on the side that they say that you can actually there's basically that you can even leave your tablecloth if you kept it on for Shabbos, as long as you have it on for Motei Shabbos for this meal. That would be okay. But he says l'kachim hisir et mapa l'achar avdala yesh l'asher v'force l'kavod suda Melava Malka. But if you remove your tablecloth, then you should put it back on for Motei Shabbos. But then the Mishnah Berurah continues and says mashma the Gemara. So we saw the Gemara together. Okay, so this is what the Mishnah Berurah, this is what he thinks is implied from the Gemara. The Yikba Seuda Zu Al Hapas V'Chatzila. That the best way to have this meal would be to do it with bread. Mo Bishar Seudos Shabbos. Like any regular meal of Shabbos. And Shar Theon explains because anytime we say to arrange a table, right, that normally would be implied with bread, right, and also the oath and he also the first thing that said is that you should set your table in the Erev Shabbos, and that obviously was talking about a case of bread, because we have what setting the table for Friday night meal. The Ode Gam Mosham Besamach also it said the Gemara later on that warm bread in Motei Shabbos is good, is healthy, it's good for you. Mashma de Emrezukai, and it says you imply that it's talking about this obligation that really so the mission learns that So really the best thing to do would be to have bread. Mo b'shar sudo shel Shabbos. Vegan mashma, the Mishnah also says, also implies the Gemara that we saw. Audio is not good. Let me just change the audio. How is this better? Audio is okay now?
Yes, well, that's a little better.
Okay. A little bit better? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, there's a little muffled, yeah.
So this also implies the tov lechatchila lehadir osa bebasar o b'shar tav shilin in Yisrael. Oh wait, yeah, maybe this will be better.
Here, how about now? That's okay?
Much
Okay,
better.
much better. Okay, yeah.
Much.
Hey, okay, good. Okay, so it also implies that say that again, the tov lechatchila lehader usa bebasar ubashar tavshilin im yeshlo. Says also it implies from that Gemara that it's better to basically honor the meal, to use meat or any cooked items if he has it. Right, and that's obviously implied from the Gemara because the Gemara told a story about Rabbi Avo who would prepare specifically this very nice meat, right? And he only even wanted the kidney, and he would slaughter a calf just to get the kidney from the calf, just for this Malava Malka meal. So as the Mishnah Berurah says, is the best thing to do. But then he says he backtracks a little bit. Be main low. Let's say you don't have this. Oh, gasa, or you're worried, you just ate so much over Shabbos. You had a big lunch, you had a big Shabbos, you ate so much the night before, right? And it's 10 p.m. and you're like, I can't sit down and have another meal. So Kigon, he says, for example, Bekayitz in the summer, right? He knows he's talking about us. Right? That nowadays that we delay having our Shal Shuddis, right, towards we have it very late. Yikaima b'mizonos, so you could either have like a little bit of mizonos, or alcohol panim b'peiros, or have some like fruits, stuff like that. So he says you don't need it specifically bread. You don't even need specifically mizonos. He says you could even have fruit. They quote again from the side that there are some who say that let's say you had Shal Shuddis and it got very late and it was a very nice Shal Shuddis and even went past Shabbos. So do you need to have a Malava Malka or do not need to have a Malava Malka on Motzi Shabbos? So they say some say yes, some say no. Okay, I don't know. That they quote a little bit of machlokas there. Anyways, the Mishnah Berurah continues. He says, Kedela lavos. So in order to escort, he says, the kishem shetzarich l'chabed Shabbos b'chnisasa, you need to, just like you. Oh wait, sorry. Just one more things before we get to the next part in the Mishnah Berurah. So there are some other things written on the side. The Ber Heitev, he writes that he says Yehadir lecho min maichal shetav alav yoser av shehu biyoker. Says that you should try to have this food that you want, that you're gonna desire more, even if it's a little bit more expensive. He says, but then he repeats similar to he repeats what the Mishnah Berurah says, Mizmaninu shemachrin kol kach besuda shlishi. Now that we have such a late Shal Shuddis, right? You can have fruits. And then he quoted that some people say that you don't need to have this fourth meal if you had a long Shal Shuddis. The Shari Tshuva says something interesting also, that he says the name of the Marsha that tov lasos davar mechudash l'motzei Shabbos. So it would be good if you had something new, if you made something a new meal on Motzei Shabbos for this Malava Malka. Like it's its own meal, but lo mishirayim, and you're not just having your leftovers, your Shabbos leftovers. It'd be better if you made something on something new. Right, so in terms of what food you should have, so it seems like there are different levels. The best level would be seemingly bread or bread, and then meat, something new, that nice meat that you would want, or a new meal. But if if you're worried about eating too much, or if you don't have it, it's just not available to you. So it sounds like you're okay with pretty much anything else in terms of the actual food. But it would seem also that the more important obligation is that the table is set, right? That you have a set table, which would mean like whatever, I guess seemingly whatever you normally set your table with for a meal. So then Mishnah Berurah continues. It says, so just like you need to honor the Shabbos as it comes in, so you also need to honor it as it goes out. Just like a person, he escorts the king as he leaves for the city, right? It's like what Rashi said. He says, so Mishnah Berurah says, because of this reason, so he says, if the whole point is escorting the Shabbos out of Shabbos, so when should you have this meal? You should have it as soon as possible after Shabbos, right? Because otherwise you're delaying. Okay, but let's say you're not hungry yet, but you think you're going to be hungry in like an hour or two. So he says, He says maybe you shouldn't even. He said it might even be proper to not do like fixed set work at that time until you have this meal. Then he says, he says, look in the Shari Tshuva, Deinu Kedai Bechol Gamna La'achar Yosur Michatzos, don't delay it after the middle of the night. And in the Shari Tshuva, he quotes from like the Arizal that he says, Hanefesh Yisera Eno Holechas Lagamri Ad Achar Suda Moti Shabbos, that your extra nefesh, that your extra soul that you get on Shabbos doesn't leave until you have this meal, Moti Shabbos. L'chein Einem Roey Lisasik B'Malacha Sheina Ochel Nefesh Ad Achar Sudas Moti Shabbos. That therefore you shouldn't be involved in work which isn't for food until you have this meal Moti Shabbos. That would be a hard chumrah, but that's what the Shari Tshuva says. The Amru Kadmonim. Okay, so this is the part we want to get to. We talk about it pretty much for the remaining of this year. Amru Kadmonim. So first we're reading the Mishnah Berurah, and then we'll see where he brings us. The Aver Echad Yesh Ba'adam, that there's this limb in a person, v'niskoi shemo, and it's called the niskoi. It's also referred to as the luz. The luz and the niskoi are the same thing. V'zeha aver nishar kayam bekever ad eis hadechia, and this bone remains in a person in their grave until the time of tchias hamesim. Even after all the rest of your bones decompose. And this bone in the body doesn't benefit from any food except for the food that you eat on the Malava Malka meal, the Motzi Shabbos meal. So what's the Mishnah Berurah talking about? Where does he get this from? So there's a Medrash in Bereshis Rabbah. It reads as follows: that so it says Adrianus. Who is Adrianus? It was Hadrian. The world refers to usually Hadrian the Great, but they quote Adrianus Shchik Atzamos. Hadrian, may his bones be crushed. Right, like pretty much like Yamach Shemo, like may his name, his bones be crushed. So he says, Shalis Rabbi Yeshua ben Chananya. So he asked Rabbi Yeshua ben Chananya the following question: Amar lo, meheicha nakadosh baruch hu meitit es adam la'asi lavo. So he said, where is Hashem going to cause? Where is Hashem going to cause the person to grow? To basically revive, where is he going to revive them from when he revives people who does it tchias amesim? So Amarlo, so Rabbi Yeshua ben Chananya says to him, "Miluz shel shidra," from this luz bone, which is basically this small bone in the shidra, in one of the back, which is the same thing as what we said here, right? The luz is the same thing as the I forget what the niskoi, right? The same bone, and so he says, Mina, how do you know that? Amrlei liyadi va'ana modelach. He says, bring me a bone and I'll show it to you. So he brings him one of these loose bones tachnu b'rechaim, so he tries to grind it up in the mill. V'lo nitchon, and it doesn't grind. It doesn't grind. Sarfu v'aish, he tries to burn in the fire. V'lo nisraf, and it doesn't burn. Nasnu b'mayim, he puts it in water. V'lo nimchen, it doesn't dissolve. Nasnu ala sadan, he put it in this anvil. V'hischa makela b'patish, he tried to hit it with a hammer. Nechlak hasadan. So what happens is that Benifka patish, and basically the hammer broke. Below chaser klum, and nothing happened to this bone. So it's basically this indestructible bone. That's the lowest bone. And so that's the Medrash says. Basically says that Tchias Amesim, rival of the dead, is going to happen, going to take place from this bone. And so what the Mishnah Berurah says is that it doesn't get any benefit besides for the food that you eat in this Malava Malka. So in the Shar Tzion here in the Mishnah Berurah, so he gives a reason for that. He says, Tam lazeh Isabel Yerabba. There's a reason for that given El Yerabba. He says, Lefi she'iver zelo kibel hana meitadas, because this bone didn't get any benefit from Eitzadas. The Adam Achol Be'erev Shabbos, because when did Adam eat from the Eitzadas? He ate from it on Friday, Erev Shabbos. V'hu eino hanami ma'achal ki b'motzei Shabbos. And this bone only gets benefit from the food you eat on Motzei Shabbos. Lefikach lo nigzar alav leikalos. Therefore, this bone didn't have the decree that it's going to be destroyed. Afilu al yedei hamisa, even through death, right? And so that's why this luz bone is indestructible, and it's going to be the bone with which HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to do Tchias Amesim. But that's all a little bit of sod, a little secrets. But basically, there's this idea also that the food you eat on Motzei Shabbos, it feeds that bone. So that's also something to know. But anyways, let's finish with what the Mishnah Berurah says. It says you should know the mikol makom sudazu ina chova alav kimo shalosh shel Shabbos. You should know, end of the day, this meal, as important as it is, right? It feeds your loose bone. It's about Kavod Shabbos. He says it doesn't have the same level of obligation as any of the 3 meals of Shabbos. Teshama smechu akra, that for the other meals they have psukim in the Torah to relate to it. V'zeu rak mitzvah b'alma. This is just a mitzvah. This doesn't have a source, a hint to it from psukim. And he says, why? When would that be relevant? Let's say you only have enough food you don't have enough food for 4 meals. You have enough food for 3 meals. So then the meals that come first are obviously the meals of Shabbos and not this Malava Malka. And then the Mishnah Berurah finishes by saying, since this whole point is to escort the Shabbos out, he says, because of that, mitamze yesh noagin the harbos neros b'motzei Shabbos yoser michol. Some people have the custom to light candles on Motzei Shabbos more than you would light during the regular week. Benogim gamkein lomar piyutim izmiru zachar abdallah. And some people have a custom also to say these different songs, different poems after Abdallah. It's all about escorting the Shabbos. So let's just summarize what we did. That we talked about where this obligation of Malava Malka comes from. It comes from a Gemara, which says to be Isader Adam Shulchan Motzei Shabbos. So we said that really the literal interpretation and with the basic obligation that the Mishnah Berurah defines is to have your table set your table with tablecloth and whatever's normal to be on a set table. And then the Mishnah Berurah talked about different foods that you could fulfill your obligation with. So we said that really best is bread or meat. And the Be'er Hatev said you should something that you actually want to eat, and the Shari Tshuva said maybe something even new. But the Mishnah Berurah said at the end of the day, right, if you're worried about eating too much or you don't have it, then you could even fill it with regular mazonos or even peiros, fruit, or just any food, it would seem like. And then we just we talked about that maybe there's this idea that you should try to do it as soon as possible, have your Malava Malka as soon as possible because it's about escorting the Shabbos out. And then we talked about this idea about this loose bone, about this or the other niskoi bone, right? That's where it gets fed. The Mishnah Berurah concludes again by saying that it's not on the same level of obligation as any of the other Shabbos meals, but it is this nice thing to do, and it's really about escorting the Shabbos out. So if you want to light candles, if you want to sing these songs and poems, it's also a beautiful minhag. Okay, we'll stop there. Does anyone have any questions?